You don't have to be Einstein's cousin. You don't have to be a senior at Caltech to know that illegal immigration is illegal. Duh. It's illegal. And those of us who believe that no one is above the law, we all say we believe that. I believe it. No one, those of us who say that no one is above the law have to concede that people in our country illegally are not above the law either. Violence, if you choose violence when you protest, that undermines the morality of the movement that you say your movement is based upon. You know who else understood that? Dr. King. King understood it. Gandhi understood it. Mandela understood it. Violently protesting, not protesting, but violently protesting undermines the morality that you say your cause is built upon. It's also dangerous. It's dangerous it's dangerous and it's stupid. It's 12-piece bucket of stupid.
In a tense moment on the Senate floor, Senator John Kennedy delivered a message that immediately demanded national attention. His words were sharp, direct, and impossible to ignore. At a time when emotions are running high across the country, Kennedy chose clarity over comfort. He addressed tragedy without exploiting it and law without apologizing for it. The speech opened with empathy, acknowledging loss while warning against reckless conclusions. Kennedy made it clear that grief should never cancel judgment. As debates over immigration enforcement and public protest continue to dominate headlines, his remarks cut straight to the heart of the issue. He spoke not just about laws, but about consequences. He spoke not just about rights, but about responsibility. The tone was firm, but deliberate. The message was controversial, but carefully constructed. Kennedy challenged both outrage culture and lawlessness in the same breath. He reminded Americans that protest is a right, but violence is not. His language was plain, his examples vivid, and his warning unmistakable. What followed was a blunt lesson in morality, law, and common sense. And by the end of his remarks, no one listening could claim they misunderstood where he stood.
Now let me say a word about Minneapolis. There's a lot we know. There's a lot we don't know. I want to talk about 3 things we do know. Number 1, the loss of life in Minneapolis was a tragedy. And if you can't admit that, you have a padlock on your heart. It was a tragedy. We don't have all the facts. I know everyone's seen the videos, but the people involved haven't been interviewed. There are a lot of facts we have, but a lot of facts we don't have. And I am not going to rush to judge. I'm not going to rush to judge. President Trump has promised a full and thorough and transparent investigation. And I thank him for that. But regardless of what we find out, we all have to concede, we all should concede that the loss of life in Minneapolis was a tragedy. And I'm sorry it happened. Number 2, this is the second thing that I know. You don't have to be Einstein's cousin. You don't have to be a senior at Caltech to know that illegal immigration is illegal. Duh. It's illegal. And those of us who believe that no one is above the law, We all say we believe that. I believe it. No one, those of us who say that no one is above the law have to concede that people in our country illegally are not above the law either. The law applies to them as well. Our immigration statutes are not second-tier laws. They matter just as much as the other statutes that have been passed by the elected members of Congress. And just like the other laws, the immigration laws have consequences and should have consequences if you violate them. Now, so I guess what I'm saying, Mr. President, is I support enforcement of our immigration laws. Now, how you enforce those laws matters. Those laws, like all laws, have to be enforced in accordance with due process. Those immigration statutes, like all laws, have to be enforced in accordance with equal protection. Those laws have to be enforced in accordance with a well-known Supreme Court case, 1968, called Terry v. Ohio, which sets forth the standards. Reasonable suspicion is the standard chosen by the Supreme Court, by which someone can be stopped and questioned when a law enforcement official doesn't have probable cause. Terry v. Ohio has to be followed. So, number one, illegal immigration is illegal. We should enforce our immigration laws, but how we enforce them matters. Third and final point. You have the right to protest in America. Let me say that again. You have the right to protest in America. You do not have the right to protest violently. And in fact, violence, as you protest, undermines the morality of the thing that you're protesting over. Let me say that again. Violence, if you choose violence when you protest, that undermines the morality of the movement that you say your movement is based upon. You know who else understood that? Dr. King. King understood it. Gandhi understood it. Mandela understood it. Violently protesting, not protesting, but violently protesting undermines the morality that you say your cause is built upon. It's also dangerous. It's dangerous it's dangerous and it's stupid. It's 12-piece bucket of stupid. Because when you protest violently, when you interfere with a cop or an ICE officer, it's not going to end well. It's not. Under the best of circumstances, these officers are trying to enforce federal law. And the people with respect to whom they're trying to enforce federal law are, in most cases, I'm not going to say all cases, but in most cases are criminals. Not criminals because they're here illegally, though that too is a violation of our law, but criminals because they have violated other laws, in many cases felonies. And those ICE officials, those cops are scared. They're scared. They're dealing with someone who could be armed, someone who could be dangerous. So you've got a powder keg. And when protesters choose to protest violently and harass those ICE officials and blow whistles in their ears and block their way and spit in their faces and curse them and curse their children, they're giving off sparks in a powder keg. And it's not going to end well in many cases. And the truth of the matter is, it's been my experience in life, most, I'm not going to say all, most cops will leave you alone unless you do illegal stuff. So, as we go forward in America and try to enforce our laws in conformity with the United States Constitution, as we go forward together in America, and while we're respecting people's constitutional rights, we respect our law enforcement officials who are doing a very difficult job. As we go forward in America today, as the President has promised, to have a full and fair and transparent investigation of the tragic loss of life in Minneapolis, I hope we can keep those three things that I think all of us can agree upon in mind. I'm sorry we're at this point, but I believe that our future can be better than our present, and certainly than our past. Thank you, Mr. President, and I yield the floor to my esteemed colleague.
Josh Hawley's stance ultimately comes across as a firm defense of principle rather than political theater. He positions himself as someone unwilling to blur the line between sympathy and surrender. Throughout the debate, Hawley emphasizes that acknowledging tragedy does not require abandoning the rule of law. His argument reinforces the idea that a nation cannot function if laws are selectively enforced. He speaks for Americans who believe compassion and accountability can coexist. Hawley's message is rooted in consistency. If no one is above the law, then that standard must apply to everyone. He makes it clear that enforcement is not hatred, but a responsibility entrusted to government. By stressing due process and constitutional limits, he rejects the caricature that law enforcement equals oppression. His approach appeals to voters who are tired of emotional arguments replacing legal reasoning. Hawley also underscores that violent behavior erodes the moral authority of any cause. He aligns his argument with historical figures who achieved lasting change through nonviolence. This framing strengthens his position and gives it moral weight. Rather than inflaming tensions, he calls for restraint and order. He recognizes the difficulty faced by law enforcement officers operating in dangerous conditions. His defense of officers is not blind loyalty, but an acknowledgement of reality. Hawley's conclusion suggests that chaos helps no one, least of all vulnerable communities. He presents law and order as a foundation for true justice, not an obstacle to it. His words resonate with those who fear a breakdown of social norms. By refusing to excuse violence, he draws a clear and necessary boundary. In the end, Hawley argues that a better future depends on responsibility, lawful action, and moral clarity.